There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is the one, the only, the original, the Darkness on the Edge of Town paranormal radio show. You know it. You love it. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. That fellow over there, why, that's the lovable and always affable Mr. Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
We get many letters every week from people around the world, possibly from hidden caves by Sasquatch, perhaps from UFOs up above us, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people send me photographs, Tim. Photographs of light anomalies, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Light anomalies, Tim.
Yep.
Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to help all of you, so you don't even have to send these to me. We've already discussed the orb phenomena. I don't want to see those. And I know some of you are very put off by that, but it's okay. Send them all to Tim. Write at tim@darknessradio.com. He loves random orb photographs.
You know, I got a few of them this week already.
Yeah. So send them all to Tim. But light anomalies, that's something different. In my picture, Dave, I have a bright blue light anomaly. Mm-hmm. It's not an orb. It's not that gray bulbous amorphous junk. It's a blue orb. And it's something supernatural. What's going on in this photograph? Sometimes it's in the sky.
Yep.
Close to the sun, Tim. Sometimes it's in a photograph with the sun, but it's much lower.
Oh, boy.
As though it's almost floating like a fairy light. What you're seeing is what's called refraction of the sun. If there is a strong light source in front of your camera and you take a picture, that light source will reflect onto the camera lens, into the mirror, back on, and it will put it in a different area.
Yep.
So let's think of it this way, folks. Many of you have watched a TV show or movie where there is a car driving towards the camera, and as it gets closer and turns to the right, you'll see a reflecting pair of lights that go off to the left. That's refraction. That's the kind of refraction of those headlights. Well, this is in essence the exact same thing, especially if you notice that this blue light's kind of at an angle from where the sun is. So if the sun is in your picture and you're getting these blue lights, that is what you're dealing with. Oh, Dave, no, it's obviously a spirit light. We'll talk to professional photographers and they will tell you what it actually is and why you should never take a photograph with that kind of direct light at your camera, because it will give you false artifacts. That's what you're dealing with. So please take a look at that. Don't be offended when I tell you it's not a ghost, but look into these things and try to get an understanding of what could be causing it. All right. And I promise you, I gain nothing by breaking your hearts. I would love to go, holy shit, that's astounding. But it's reflection. That's all. So just I wanted to put that out there, Tim. So people can look at their pictures themselves and start to see them with a more specialized eye. People will think of you as an expert because you've taken the time to look at these things and make good choices. That's all I'm saying. I'm just putting that out there, Tim.
Sure. And a great rule of thumb is to always be your own best skeptic.
Yeah.
To always take a look at your photo and say, and throw down 10 reasons why this wouldn't be a ghost before you say it is a ghost.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I want to also mention, hey, go to our official Darkness Radio Amazon store. Not only do we have paranormal books, true crime books, some paranormal gifts, ghosty-like gifts, but we also now have a whole section of Holzer books so that you can find it right there. Just go to darknessradio.com, click on the shop, and you'll see the first banner for our Amazon store. Click on it. It'll take you in. You'll see all the little subsections. But now you can go and you can find The Psychic World of Bishop Pike, Ghosts by Hans Holzer, The Phantoms of Dixie, Witches, True Encounters with Wicca, Covens, and Magic, Exploration of the Unknown, Murder in Amityville, Life Beyond, Psychic, The Handbook of Parapsychology, Yankee Ghosts, Elvis Speaks from Beyond the Grave, The Great British Ghost Hunt, and Growing Up Haunted by Alexandra Holzer as well. So there's a lot of great books in those categories. So I just wanted to put that out there. You can go out and find that now by going to darknessradio.com, click on the store tab or shop, whatever the tab is called, and you will find our Amazon store there. There's some big news, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Big news. There's a lot of people out there looking for love in all the wrong places, Tim, looking for love in too many faces.
Oh, boy, is there ever.
And they can't find that one, that true spark, that enigmatic force that draws us to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And they're desperate. And what makes their plight even more desperate, Tim, is they've seen UFOs. They've possibly been abducted by aliens, Tim. And that makes it kind of hard to have an open discussion with some people, because if you bring it up, some people might look at you like you're cuckoo in the nut, as my mom would say.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you know you've had the experience. Other experiencers believe you've had that experience. Well, wouldn't it be great if there was a way to meet those people? Oh, there is. I know this is going to sound hard to believe, but now casting. Have you ever seen a UFO? Has your experience made it difficult for you to find love? Well, a premium streaming platform and a prominent major film director have paired up for a brand new program. They've joined forces to create a powerful, groundbreaking television series that brings people together who have shared the life-altering experience of alien visitation or abduction. So if you are single, that means unmarried, completely unmarried, and you've seen a UFO. You've been abducted or visited by aliens and are tired of dating people who do not believe you or who can't understand what you've gone through. Well, this casting company wants to meet you. They are looking for all types of people and gender identities. You can apply now at UFOcasting.com. Yes, this is serious. I'm not joking. UFOcasting.com. UFOcasting.com. Go check it out. You may be featured on a new major streaming platform with a prominent film director behind it, and you may find the love of your life. That's all I'm saying. So go check it out for yourself.
Can I just ask a couple of questions?
For you, I will try it. But again, that's all they sent me. I know nothing more than that.
I'm just waxing rhetorically.
Oh,
if I may. If I may.
Is that painful?
It is, because I'm quite hairy. And it's this, because, obviously we have The Bachelor out there, right?
Right.
So I'm wondering what style of program this is going to be, if it's going to be multiple men and women. I mean,
it said they're open to all genders,
sure,
all fluidity. So whoever and whatever has had an experience. Maybe you're a Sasquatch that's been abducted and you're looking for another Sasquatch. Maybe you want to connect with a chupacabra. I'd kid. It makes it sound like we're being dismissive.
Right,
but they're looking for everybody and anybody that have had these experiences and are looking for love now.
I would hope it wouldn't be the Bachelor type format where it's one lady and a bunch of guys, or one guy and a bunch of ladies, and it would be like, who am I going to give this implant to? I
like it.
Yeah,
I was thinking Reese's Pieces, like E.T.
Well,
the Reese's Pieces this week.
Yeah, I would hope they would stay away from that type of format. I would hope it would be more of an open dating type format.
Wouldn't it be great if it was like, all the bachelors are standing in a room. Each one has a row of Reese's Pieces they have to follow. One takes them out the door to a limo and they're gone. That's you find out. The others bring you to the boudoir. That's bedroom for fancy people, Tim. Yeah. So it could just, each trail of Reese's Pieces. But who are we? We're not TV guys to create these kind of programs. If we were, it'd be a lot more fun.
Exactly.
But if you guys are interested, UFOcasting.com. I kid you not. It's a real show. They've reached out to us to help promote it. So if you're interested in getting on with your getting on, then go get on with your loving.
That's right.
I'm not here to judge you.
Find someone of a like mind who's had a like experience. There you go.
Yes. Yeah. Very weird. Very weird, but I'm all down for it. I think people should find people that they can share commonalities with.
Sure, especially if you've been through a like traumatic experience together. You can talk, you can, I don't know, take the little bastards' heads off together like the guy over at that ranch. That
Stardust Ranch.
Yeah, Stardust Ranch, yeah.
You get you a matching pair of katana blades or samurai swords to help you disembowel an alien or two.
It's easier to take them out when you're back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, could be.
Exactly.
Boy, we're weird. What a weird beginning to a show. But it's all true. Go out there and check it out. Hey, Tim, it's been a while since we've talked about a big asshole on our show.
It has been, yes.
Right? And boy, do I have a big asshole to discuss today.
What?
Surrounded in mystery and tales of demons, the Well of Barhout in Yemen's east, known as the Well of Hell, is a little understood natural wonder. I want to, Tim, I'm actually going to send you. I want you to see this. And for all of our listeners, they can find this by going to darknessradio.com, click on the news tab. But Tim, if you are curious what a big asshole looks like, here it is right there. Are you ready? Tell me that is not the quintessential photograph of a big asshole in the earth.
Dave, right? that is a big asshole.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, it's huge. Look at how big it is.
It even has a slight amount of puckerage around the edge.
It does.
If I may say so. Yeah.
Well, it's called the Well of Hell for a reason, Tim, because closer to the border with Oman than to the capital of Sana'a, 1,300 kilometers, that's 800 miles to those of us in the United States away, the giant hole is in the desert of Al-Mahara province. It's 30 meters wide. I told you it's a big asshole and thought to be anywhere between 100 to 250 meters deep. Now, local folklore says that it was created as a prison for demons, a reputation bolstered by the foul odors rising from the depths of this big asshole, Tim. I mean, it's brutal smells.
But
Yemeni officials say that they don't know what lies below. It's very deep. We've never reached the bottom of this well, and there's little oxygen and no ventilation, said Salar Babaher, Director General of Mahar's Geological Survey and Mineral Resources Authority. We have gone to visit the area and entered the well, reaching more than 50 to 60 meters down into it, when we noticed strange things inside this big asshole, Tim.
Wow.
We also smelled something strange. It's a mysterious situation. Sunlight doesn't extend far into the structure, and little can be seen from the edge except the birds that fly in and out of its depths.
Wow, that is big.
Yeah, videographers seeking close-ups of the inside of this big asshole have said that they are almost impossible to capture. Local superstition has it that objects near this big asshole can be sucked into it, Tim.
What?
You don't want to be sucked into a big asshole. It's horrible. Bob Hare, millions and millions of years old. These places require more study, research, and investigation, he said. Over the centuries, stories have circulated of malign supernatural figures known as jinns or genies living in that well. Many local residents remain uneasy about visiting that vast hole. Oh, why do I got to go and make it weird?
Yeah.
Is a vast hole or a big asshole, as we say in the Americas.
Right.
Or even uncomfortable talking about it, Tim, for fear of ill fortune from a chasm, which legend has it threatens life on Earth itself. Yemens have had enough bad luck as it is. The country has been embroiled in a civil war since 2014 between the government and the Houthi rebels. The United Nations says Yemen is suffering the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with tens of thousands killed, millions displaced, and 2/3 of its 30 million population dependent on some form of aid. And right in the middle of it, Tim, one giant pockmarked asshole right there. Boom!
You know, Dave, I know they've tried to take a peek into this big asshole. I know there's birds that fly in and out of this big asshole.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they've really tried flushing out this big asshole.
I don't know.
You know, I mean, just take a big old hose and throw it down this big asshole and see what.
Give the earth an enema?
Right. And try to flush it out and see what comes out. I mean, maybe that would get rid of some of the odor.
with our luck, it's like a direct hole into Minneapolis, and that's the last thing we need is all of a sudden like just jutting water that stinks of Yemen's big ass hole.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
Here's an interesting deal on CNN, no less, Tim.
Okay.
That's the cable news network on their website. This is the headline. I was actually quite surprised that CNN is covering this.
Okay.
They never ran out of things to talk about. It was obvious from the start. He was a brawny former Marine lobster. Or I'm sorry, not a Marine. He's a former Maine lobsterman. There's not Marine lobstermen. Maybe there are, Tim. Maybe there are Marines that are mutated lobster men that go to battle in special circumstances. But I have yet to hear about them.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. He was a brawny former Maine lobsterman with a booming baritone. She was a redhead with freckles from Wisconsin who worked in corporate recruiting. They talked about everything from sci-fi movies and her love for the rock group Bon Jovi to whether the Lord of the Rings film trilogy did justice to Tolkien's books. He asked for permission to kiss her on their first date, and she said yes. When Ian and Michelle Horn got married, he wore a purple tie on their wedding day because it was her favorite color. As the years rolled by, they got matching tattoos and gave each other nicknames from the movie Princess Bride. He called her Princess Buttercup, and she called him Farm Boy Wesley.
Uh-huh.
They made plans to visit Ireland this year to celebrate her Irish roots. Then came the pandemic. Last fall, after a long battle, Michelle Horn died from complications caused by COVID-19. Ian Horn's superpower, as he called her, was gone. They had been married almost 10 years. But not long after his wife's death, the morning radio DJ in Wichita, Kansas, wondered if Michelle was still speaking to him. He was driving to his job in the pre-dawn darkness when he spotted something odd. About 24 streetlights flanking the highway had turned purple. They looked like a lavender string of pearls glowing in the night sky. Michelle knew that this was my route to work that I take every morning and was the route she took on her final drive to the hospital, says Horn, who hosts his morning show on 101.3 KFDI as JJ Hayes. I remember simply smiling and feeling overwhelmed with the idea that Michelle was close. The coronavirus pandemic has now killed more than 600,000 Americans. Many of us never had a chance to hug or say farewell to loved ones who died alone and isolated in a hospital ward due to fears of spreading the virus. But there is another group of pandemic survivors who say that they have been granted a second chance to say goodbye. They are people like Horn who believe they've been contacted by a loved one who died from coronavirus. These experiences can be subtle, relatives appearing in hyper-real dreams, a sudden whiff of fragrance worn by a departed loved one, or unusual behavior by animals. Other encounters are even more dramatic, feeling a touch on your shoulder at night, hearing a sudden warning from a loved one, or seeing the full-bodied form of a recently departed relative appear at the foot of your bed. These stories may sound implausible, but they are in fact part of a historical pattern. There is something in us or in our lost loved ones that won't accept not being able to say goodbye. And whenever there is a massive tragedy, such as a pandemic, a war, or a natural disaster, there is a corresponding surge in reports of people seeing the dead and trying to contact them. Now, the 1918 influenza epidemic sparked the spiritualism craze as Americans turned to seances and Ouija boards to try to contact departed loved ones. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks came a wave of people reporting sightings of and even conversations with those who had been snatched from their lives. When a tsunami struck Japan in 2011, killing at least 20,000 people, so many inhabitants of the Inishimaki reported seeing their loved ones appear that a book and a documentary were made about this city of wandering ghosts. These kind of reports are normal in my world, said Scott Jansen, an author who has worked in hospice field for years and studies these experiences. It would make sense that in a pandemic or other event that leads to mass deaths, that there would be a numerical increase in reports and experiences given the shared grief and trauma. These experiences are so common in the psychological field that there's a name for them. ADCs, or after-death communications. Research suggests at least 60 million Americans have these experiences and that they occur across every culture, religious belief, ethnicities, and income levels. Many of these encounters occur in the twilight state between sleeping and waking, but others have been reported by people who are wide awake and alert. Bill Guggenheim, co-author of Hello from Heaven, a book that explores ADCs, believes there is a spiritual purpose behind these visits. They want you to know that they're still alive and that you'll be reunited with them when it's your turn to leave your lifetime on Earth, he writes. They want to assure you they'll be there to meet you and greet you and perhaps even to assist you as you make your own transition. ADCs may serve another function in the world created by COVID, to reassure people who couldn't be at the side of their loved ones when they died. Consider the story of Jamie Jackson, an office manager who lives near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Her beloved Aunt Pat, Jackson's aunt, died of a heart attack last summer after complications from COVID. Jackson said her aunt was more like a mother to her, someone she spent summers with and accompanied to the hospital for routine medical visits. But when her aunt was afflicted with COVID, Jackson couldn't visit the hospital to reassure her. That was the hardest thing, Jackson says. You can't say goodbye, and you can't be there as an advocate for your loved one, which is difficult because you have somebody who's in the hospital who's scared and not used to being alone. 7 months later, though, Jackson says she heard from her aunt again. It was December, and Jackson was putting up Christmas decorations in her house while Bing Crosby sang holiday carols. Christmas was one of her aunt's favorite holidays, and she loved decorating. Jackson's bin was filled with the same decorations that once belonged to her aunt. Jackson says she left the bin in the hallway to get something, and when she returned, she saw a translucent figure peering into it. It was the figure of a petite woman with the same haircut, color of hair, and white blouse and blue slacks that her aunt used to wear. Jackson froze. Her heart started pounding. She fled to her dining room and started crying. When she returned, the figure was gone. She thinks it was her aunt. It was overwhelming, Jackson says. It's hard to put into words. I felt touched by that. It's obvious that she's still around and she is visiting me. Some post-COVID paranormal encounters are even more dramatic. One woman says she was literally touched by a loved one who died from complications from COVID. Maria Pena teaches English as a second language in Manitoba, Canada. She says her 79-year-old mother, Inez, was about to be released from the hospital last November when there was a COVID outbreak in her ward. She tested positive and was put in isolation. She returned home the next month, but had lost her strength. About 4 months after her diagnosis, her mother died. On the morning of her mother's death, Pena says she was reaching for her slippers in her bedroom when she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She turned and saw her mother sitting beside her, staring straight ahead with no expression. But she looked 20 years younger. Her touch was cold, like she had just come in from the outside, Pena said. One day, not long after that morning, Pena reported another classic characteristic of an ADC. She was making a spinach soup, one of her mom's favorites, when she suddenly smelled the fragrance associated with her mother, a combination of white diamond perfume and her mother's chai hairspray. The scent was overpowering, Pena said. My husband and I stood in the kitchen awestruck as I stirred the soup. We both could smell it. It lasted approximately 5 minutes before evaporating. Talk to people who've had these experiences, and many will acknowledge that maybe their minds created the episode. Others insist the visitations were too real to deny. Jackson, who lost her aunt, says it's almost irrelevant if they're real or not. Their impact is real, she says, and that made her feel better. If I needed to see it and it made me feel better, and that's all it was, I'm okay with that, she explains. I'll tell people if they don't want to believe me or not. That's fine. I don't need to explain it to other people. Now, some ADCs are more chilling. Some paranormal experiences happen to people who are not reassured by them. Some people are creeped out by those things and are certainly not looking for them, said Jansen, the hospice worker. For some, it clashes with worldviews of religious beliefs. Some people have visits like this years after the fact when they are not grieving, or have visits from people with whom they have struggled and from whom they may not actually wish to have a visit from. Haunting ADCs are also common during wartime. War memoirs are filled with stories of combat veterans reporting creepy after-death visitations from fallen comrades or even enemy soldiers that they killed. In the classic memoir, What It Is Like to Go to War, Carl Marlantes, a Vietnam veteran, wrote about how the ghost of a North Vietnamese soldier he killed stalked him for years after he returned home. In one striking passage, Marlantes relates how he exorcised this enemy's ghost. He arranged a private mass with a priest at 2 a.m. at an old church where he says he saw the spirits of the enemies he killed and the comrades who died under his command file into the pews. Even his late grandparents appeared, smiling as if they approved. Counselors working with veterans often hear such stories, Jansen says. I've been doing this a long time, and I consider it a near universal phenomenon that has a particularly heavy engagement. A lot of people in your unit are lost. It's inevitable that some of those troops are going to receive visits from their buddies, he says. Horn, the radio DJ, reports having other after-death encounters with his late wife. Not long after she died, he was sitting on the deck in his backyard when a cardinal landed on a branch in front of him. Cardinals, according to folklore, often appear when loved ones are near. Horn was struck by the bird because he says cardinals don't normally show up in Kansas in autumn. Horn says he had moments when he's clearly heard Michelle call to him in the night, Ian, wake up. It's as if she's in the room with me, he says. It's enough to snap me awake, and I'm a deep, hard sleeper. Call it an auditory hallucination or whatever you want, but I definitely hear it. Both signs are comforting to him, in part because Horn remembers how Michelle fought so hard to live. He says her immune system was weakened after she received a kidney transplant several years ago. When the pandemic hit, they both dreaded what would happen if she got the virus. After their worst fears proved true, Horn says it seemed at first as if Michelle would survive. She endured a lengthy hospital stay, which included being put on a ventilator, but was released last October. She worked hard to get better, but there were times when Michelle's natural optimism just wavered. Horn says she once told him, I'm such a burden to you. You don't deserve this. You should just leave. But he kept encouraging her in physical therapy. I was in it for the long haul, for better or for worse, he says. Michelle's body, though, didn't have the strength for that long haul. She died from a heart attack last October, her body weakened by COVID, Horn says. She was only 50. Horn's radio audience has rallied around him. He's shared his story on the air, and it's been featured in local newspapers. He finds it cathartic to talk to Michelle. I feel that a person dies twice, once when they have their physical death, and the second time when we stop saying their name, he says. Any opportunity I have to talk about Michelle, I will take it. Yet, in an odd way, Michelle may be still talking to Horn, even after he first saw those purple streetlights. When they were married, Horn developed a ritual with Michelle. She worried about his safety driving to work in the dark each morning. After he arrived, he would reassure Michelle by texting, I'm here. I love you. The purple lights in Wichita are still shining. Horn keeps seeing them on his morning commute. It's as if Michelle is responding with a similar message. He's not sure how long the purple lights will remain. He called the city of Wichita, and they attributed the faulty lights to a defective batch. They told him they were going to replace the lights, but he's in no rush for that to happen. I'm kind of honestly hoping they don't, Horn says. I will always believe that Michelle turned them purple. Whether she actually did or not, that's up to a reader or viewer to decide. They can explain it away. I believe it was a way for Michelle to be with me every morning on my ride to work. And I hope they never change. It's a great story. And
Yeah,
I'm so happy to see CNN covering this in a respectful way.
Yeah.
What a beautiful, beautiful story. Speaking of stories, we want to hear from you. Call our Voices from Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977. 651-300-4977. I'll wait while you grab a pen and paper. So, Tim, how's your day been?
Oh, pretty good. I woke up this morning, I had a little something to eat. I
can't ask for more than waking up every morning. That's a good sign.
I know. To be 6 feet above ground is a good thing, You
sleep on a giant canopy bed?
I do. I like to feel like Lily Tomlin, like I'm like,
Strange reference.
what's that?
That's a strange reference. Why Lily Tomlin?
Well, wasn't she the one that sat in the big chair?
Oh yes, Edith Ann.
Yeah, Edith Ann.
Right. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So everything has to be very, very big because I'm a big guy. I like to feel small sometimes. So
But you're 6 feet off the ground, Tim. No wonder your foot's under duress and stress all the time. You can't be dropping for. Oh, sorry, they're back with their pens and paper.
Yeah, okay.
Our voices from beyond voicemail is 651-300-4977. 651-300-4977. We want to hear from you. Call us. Share your stories, just like this caller.
Hi, this is Alita Hirsch, Baldwin, Missouri. I've had many paranormal. I was 3, but this one's one of the saddest. It does have to do with suicide. When I got divorced from an 18-year marriage, I joined a folk dancing group, also called Contra Dancers, and every Sunday we met. There would be a small group of musicians playing the music while we would waltz or folk dance. There was one guy, I'll call James, who did not really like me because I would tease him, but that was my way of flirting. I was not aware James had a lot of depression and physical problems, and he was also dating the flute player in the music group at the time, but she'd recently broken it off with him. One Sunday, the band was playing, everybody was dancing. I looked over and saw James watching his ex-girlfriend playing on stage, and we glanced over to make sure he was doing okay. A waltz came on, and I wanted to dance, so I looked across the room and noticed James sitting in a chair staring at me. I thought, what the hell? I'm going to go walk across the room and ask him to dance. With that thought in mind, I turned across the room, but halfway across I noticed he was gone. So I got kind of angry, thinking he ran away because I finally got the balls to ask him to dance, and the rest of the night I never saw him. Monday morning came around, and one of the Contra dancing friends called me and asked if I heard the news, and I stopped her, and I told her the story about James staring at me, running away, when I started to walk over to him. There was dead silence, and she said, "That's impossible." I told her no, he was staring at me and ran when I started across the room. Well, he didn't run, he disappeared. And she said, "No, Alita, that's impossible because James committed suicide late Friday night." They found his body Sunday when he did not answer his phone. I literally fell to my knees because I saw James as clear as can be at the dance, and I made eye contact with him. Later that night, I found out another dancer in the group saw James. He saw James watching his ex-girlfriend, and he saw James staring at me. So I do have a witness, so I was not crazy. And that's my story. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to the program. See, it's just that easy. Voices from Beyond Voicemail. You tell your story. We play it on the show. How much better could that be? And you get heard by tens of people around our town, probably.
Yeah.
No, we have tens of thousands of millions of hundreds of billions of people that listen to this show. Somewhere in there is the truth. But anyway, call in 651-300-4977. You can also send me your emails to dave@darknessradio.com. Hi, Dave. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Greetings from South Mississippi. I've always been rather closed. I'm very empathetic to the point of hurting sometimes, but I never remember my dreams or even feel like I've experienced anything paranormal. Now, you must know that I have used cannabis for about 50 years. My theory is I'm too high to notice, or the THC acts as a block. My theory, what do you guys think? I'm curious if anyone else has this experience. Thanks. And damn, you guys make me laugh and amuse the heck out of me. And that comes from Chef Jan or Chef Jan. I don't know. I maybe it's just that your brain is working in a different way, so you don't recollect dreams. They claim we all dream, even those people that claim they don't dream. They've done studies and tests and have found the brain activity in REM and people that claim that they never dream. You just may not have that recall. So, or maybe the dreams are just not profound enough to leave a lasting impression. They may just be the brain resorting and defragmenting every night, and it's nothing that needs to be recalled. So I bet you do, but again, I think Benadryl is one of the drugs they say if you take Benadryl at night, that it can actually impede your dreaming and can impact your sleeping in a bad way.
From one to another, Chef, I'll tell you something. Before I was prescribed it medically, I had very vivid dreams every night, and this is kind of horrifying. Had very vivid dreams every night that I was getting the crap kicked out of me by different things. It could have been humans, monsters, almost demonic looking like monsters, supervillains, whatever it was, wrestlers. It could have been anything or anybody. But every single night, I was getting the crap kicked out of me. This was happening for years. After I was prescribed medical cannabis, I had a harder time remembering what my dreams were at night. And it was almost like those vivid dreams of being attacked every night in my sleep subsided. I do dream and I do remember those dreams now, but I also am not attacked anymore. Now, I will throw in a caveat to that. I've also, before I go to bed now, also say a St. Michael's prayer and an Our Father. I started doing that as well because I had a sneaky suspicion about some things. But before I started doing that, I also was doing the medical cannabis for chronic pain. And that did start to quell some of the dreams and started to tamp down the dreams. Mm-hmm. So I would throw this in that, yes, I do believe it does change some of the brain patterns of sleep. I don't believe you sleep as deeply, believe it or not. I think you do, you are chemically knocked out, much like anesthesia. I don't believe you go into as deep of a sleep because if you notice, and anybody who's ever partaken of the devil's lettuce, as Dave calls it, will realize that when you come out of it, you're tired or you may fall into a sleep. But when you come out of that sleep, you're still a little groggy or you're still a little tired because you don't obtain that REM sleep that most people who do not partake get.
But you know what, Tim, I got to say, I have a lot of dreams and I wake up sometimes more exhausted after active dreams where I physically feel like I lived through that dream.
Well, and I believe that's because you have reached an astral plane or you've traveled astrally where you're.
I have. Hey, first of all, I've never traveled astrally ever. I'm an outie, not in anything.
No, I get what you're saying. No.
Oh, you mean astral projection?
Yes, astral projection. Yes, I believe you've left your body and you're actually having experiences outside of your body. That's why you're exhausted when you come back. And okay, I'll share something with you here that I thought I'd never share. You're going to laugh at me when I say this, and now I'm going to have people emailing me. Part of that prayer at night is actually to protect me when I go to sleep, because I do believe that I travel outside of my body when I sleep. So it is for St. Michael to protect me, both my body and as I travel. So there you go.
I get that. I get that. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. I wish we could tell you, Chef Jan, that it is the weed, but I don't know for certain. But you might want to just talk to a doctor. They might be able to tell you, oh yeah, that is known to affect your dreams. Either keeping them off or bringing them on. I'm not sure. Our story that we talked about from CNN, the people that lost their loved ones, and him hearing his wife's voice. I got to tell you, I had a really weird experience about a week ago.
Okay.
I'm in a dead sleep. I hear my daughter Pacey scream at the top of her lungs, "Dad! Dad!" And she's screaming. Like just full on screaming. And I wake up and I'm like, oh crap. And I put on my pants because I sleep in my drawers. And, I don't want to go stumbling out in the hall in my underwear. She has a friend spending the night. I didn't want to have the friend come walking out. And then I'm like, every possible thought, oh my God, did her friend die in her sleep? Something horrific happen. And I go out there and it's silent. And then I'm like, well, my daughter's door is closed. It's early in the morning. It's like 5. I don't want to wake her and her friend up. So then I'm like, oh, God. Well, then as I go walking past the bathroom, which we keep the door closed so the dog doesn't get in there and tear up the garbage, I just get this weird sense. And I go, Pacey, are you in the bathroom? She goes, yeah, why? And I said, were you just calling for me? Do you need paper or something? She's like, no. And I said, Pacey, I just heard you screaming for me. What are the odds I would hear you screaming for me? And then I come out and you happen to be awake and in the bathroom. She's like, I don't know. That's weird. But yeah, and it's not unlike my children to be, I need toilet paper, right?
Yeah.
Screaming at a distance, but it wasn't her. It wasn't it left me so uncomfortable and unnerved all day long. Because then she's like, okay, Dad, I got to go run some errands. And she's she just turned 16. She's got her car, her license. So like my stomach's on edge and in knots. And I'm like, oh God, just let her be okay. You text me wherever you're going to go. Text me when you get there. Text me when you're on your way home. She's like, why? I said, I just have a bad feeling, Pace. Please just do it. So she has. And thankfully nothing bad happened. But man, was that freaky.
Maybe by making her aware, you've averted whatever it was you saw.
I hope so. I didn't see anything. I just heard.
Maybe I'll address this with you off air. It's not something I feel comfortable addressing with you on air, but it was something I once told Joe and he agreed with me on. But
Joe who?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, we'll chit chat off air. I'm fine in being undressed with you off air. I mean, you addressing me off air.
Yeah.
Let me share these weird two stories, then we're going to go to a quick break. A wife claims that the letter she wrote for a future husband proved quite prophetic. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
A woman has gone viral with her incredible claim that after rediscovering a series of letters she wrote to her quote-unquote future husband as a teen, her husband's arm featured a tattoo of a Bible verse she had forgotten she wrote about. The woman, known only as Mrs. Younks on the video sharing platform of TikTok, posted about the wild coincidence. On May 30th, she was responding to the video prompt, "What's something that sounds fake about your relationship but is real?" So when I was 15 or 16, some girls at my church were writing future love letters to their husbands, she explained. And I was like, oh, that's such a cool idea. I'm going to do that too. The woman joked, though she loved the idea, she only wrote a couple of love notes before stopping. So I started writing future love letters to my future husband. I only wrote 2 and then I forgot about it and I stuck them in a notebook and I never looked at them again, she said. However, after her husband proposed and the 2017 wedding day drew closer, she remembered her teenage love letter project and decided to gift them to her spouse. It was while reading them at the reception that the two realized a strange coinkydink, Tim. She had written about the Bible verse he had tattooed on his arm. On one of the letters, I had written an obscure Bible verse I had found in my Bible. It is, I don't know this, Nahum.
Okay.
1 chapter 7. Is there a book of the Bible named Nahum?
I'm not sure.
That doesn't sound familiar to me, but maybe this is one of those foreign articles that's been redone, but I've never heard of it. Anyway, she explained, when I gave it to him at our wedding, we realized we had Nahum 1:7 tattooed on his arm, and he had gotten it in the same year I wrote those letters. I'm dead serious. Since posting, the video has been viewed 2.7 million times and liked by nearly 582,000 viewers. Thousands took to the comments to express their amazement at the coinkydink. Wow, God is so good, one viewer shared. I'm not religious, but that's freaky, another commented. You manifested him, one viewer even boldly proclaimed. Although she wasn't able to recall the exact wording of the verse while recording the video, several shared the quote in the comments section. The Lord is good, a stronghold in a day of distress, and he knows those who take refuge in him. In a series of follow-up videos, the woman also addressed a few popular questions in the comments section, including when she wrote the letters and if she had made them while dating her now husband. I was in high school, but my husband is 5 years older than me, so he was not in high school. So when I was writing those letters, he was in his early 20s. He was quite a bit older than me, she explained in one video. We did not know each other. We actually grew up an hour and a half away from one another. I'm on the north side of Houston, and he was on the south side of Houston. Well, there goes the old concept of maybe this is a different country. We were pretty far apart. She also explained that while she knew he had the phrase Nahum 1:7 on his arm, she forgot that she had written about that Bible verse until rereading the letters years after penning them. I got to look this up, dude, because I don't know.
I just did. What
is it?
The Book of Nahum is part of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Weird. So it's not even one of the canonical Bible chapters.
No, in fact...
that makes it even more bizarre, doesn't it?
Yeah, so let me look up. You said it was Nahum what?
Chapter 1, verse 7.
Okay. 1:7. So let's see.
Oh, here it is. All those that listen to Darkness Radio shall be enlightened and entertained and educated weekly. That's a good verse. I like that.
That is a very good verse. Although I have a feeling that's not it.
Oh. Yeah, well, I read what she said it was. I'm not going to question the article writer from Microsoft News. I guess they know what it is.
I guess so. Nahum 1:7 is, the Lord is good, a refuge in times of trouble. He cares for those who trust in him.
Yeah, which is just a different version of what I read. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it says, Kilroy was here and listened to Darkness Radio. So who knew? 2,000 years ago that was in there. So there you go.
That's crazy. When I found these letters, it was just a couple days before the wedding, and I did skim them, but I didn't really take the time to acknowledge, this Bible verse is the same one that he has, until the day of the wedding when we reread through the letters, she adds. Newsweek reached out to the woman for comment on the video, but she did not immediately respond in time for publication. She is also not the first to share her wild wedding experience. One woman made the startling accusation that her sister kicked her out of the bridal party because she would not let her honeymoon in her house. Another man claimed he found his new bride marrying another man on social media in what turned out to be a con artist scheme. Love, exciting and new. Come aboard, kookiness is expecting you. Speaking of kookiness and brides and grooms, Tim,
yes.
Let's take a ride to India for this next story.
All right.
A bride collapsed and died at the beginning of her wedding in India. So the groom married her younger sister instead after the body was removed to another room, according to reports. The bride, only identified as Surbi, collapsed of a heart attack while exchanging traditional garlands with her husband-to-be, Mangesh Kumar, at the start of their ceremony Thursday, according to News 18, citing the Indo-Asian news service. She was pronounced dead by a doctor who raced to the festivities in Samspura village in Uttar Pradesh, the report said. We didn't know what to do in the situation. Both the families sat quietly together, and then someone suggested that my younger sister Nisha should be married to the groom. The woman's brother, Saruba, told IANS. The families discussed the matter and both agreed. It was a bizarre situation as the wedding of my younger sister took place while the dead body of our other sister was lying in another room, he said, according to the Times of India. After the joy of the wedding, the family immediately held last rites for the dead bride-to-be. It was a tough decision for our family. One of the woman's uncles, Ajab Singh, told Ians, I don't think it was that tough. Well, she's dead. What should we do? Let's have him marry the other sister. Okay. That doesn't seem like a real tough decision that they would put themselves through.
Somebody,
in fact, seems a little too fast.
Yeah, and somebody ring the bell and switch.
Good God. One daughter was lying dead in one room, and the wedding of another was going on in another room. We've never experienced such mixed emotions. The grief over her death and the happiness of the wedding has yet to sink in. That is kooky.
So I'm gonna throw you in the situation real quick. You're about to marry your wife.
Right.
She unexpectedly dies. Her sister's available. Knowing your wife and her sister, do you take the shot?
Oh no. No. My wife listens to the show. No. Never.
Come on. She would give you a pass on this question. I know she would.
No, that's weird. First of all, I'm an emotional wreck of a guy when it comes to death anyway.
Yeah.
I take it.
Come on. You take 15, you get a 15-minute mourning period. After the 15-minute mourning period,
I'm in. Hey, Kel, let's do this. No. That would be so weird, wouldn't it? It's just like where your bride drops and you're like, next, serving number 2. Number 2. Is number 2 available? What the flying flip, Tim? What the flying flip?
But you have to.
That is so weird.
But you have to understand, in other cultures, marriage is not necessarily for strictly for love. There's a.
I know that there's a more.
Yeah, there's
a social status to it.
Well, not only social status, but there's a business behind it, and for lack of a better term, there's a business behind it. Yeah.
I don't know. No, I have thought. I'm like, what would happen if my wife died, and her sister's younger than her, but looks kind of like my wife?
Yeah.
Would I find her attractive after the fact? I don't know. I don't know.
On a very short.
Angela and I are just gonna marry and retire to Connecticut together if we lose our spouses. To be honest with you.
On a very short note, I have some very messed up genealogy on the Lasker side of my family, where brothers actually swapped wives. It happened, and so. Yeah. And there is some intermingling of cousins, and it's very messy. It's you look at the family tree is more like a mangled bush.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad.
I saw a couple of those in the 80s, by the way.
Yeah. If you look at the right magazines, you will. But yeah, it's bad. But as you go through a few family trees, there are a few family trees where you go through them and you go, wait a minute, these people really shouldn't be together, but there are.
You mean the royals?
Well, not just the royals, believe it or not. When you go further back, they say there's only 6 degrees of separation in everybody's DNA that keeps them from being related.
Weird.
So you can go back, believe it or not, there may be somebody that connects you and your wife from being related.
It is weird. I keep, I get messages from Ancestry.com and 23andMe. They're like, oh, we've uncovered new relatives.
Yep.
And I always look at my wife and we both close our eyes and hit the let's see button.
Yep.
Is it a new kid? Is it a alien human hybrid Schrader? I don't know. But we click it and it's always like a 5th or 6th cousin that they've uncovered. So, when you're like anything past 3rd cousin, I'm kind of like, whatever. I've lived this long without you.
You want to hear something funny? My aunt, she's doing the genealogy of both sides of my mom and dad's families, and with my grandma and grandpa Dennis, it was assumed that there was no familial ties there. As she's going back into the genealogy and going further and further back, it turns out there's a relative in common there that made them cousins.
Identical cousins.
Isn't that weird?
They walk a lot. They talk a lot. Yeah, that is strange.
Yeah.
Very weird.
So
I remember, when I grew up in Chicago, my buddy Rick, you've met Rick.
Yep.
His dad and mom were my babysitters for many years, and then his dad passed away when we were in 8th grade. And, a handful of years later, she ended up marrying his brother. And at the time, it sounds very dynasty, Falcon Cresty, scandalous. But then you're like, here are two people that already knew each other. They both lost their spouses around the same time. They're both getting up there in age. And, they'd already interacted well together. So, it kind of, in a sense, makes sense. But listen, I'm already worried that my wife, who's 14 years younger than me, is going to trade up when she hits 60. I'm like, honey, I'm going to be 80 when you're 65. You're just going to be retiring, getting that second wave of life. I'm going to have to start having like the dog test my tea before I drink it, and she swears that's not going to happen. But her sister's even like 4 years younger than her. I can't take that chance, Tim.
Well,
I feel like that's just an insurance policy waiting to be cashed.
Yeah, she'll wait for you to pass before she goes and finds a whippersnapper of 50 to go.
We'll see.
Yeah, to go. Yeah.
All right,
she'll go get her boy toy.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got a new theater of the mind. We've got more news stories, more of your stories to share right here on Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the program. This is Darkness Radio, the best in paranormal podcasting. I'm Dave. That's Tim. This is the next story. A ghost of an agitated woman has been caught on camera at the Bodmin jail. She's the kind of woman to avoid, says Bodmin Jail's paranormal manager. In the dark corridors of Cornwall's old jail, the ghost of an agitated woman lurks menacingly. Wandering around the grimy cells of Bodmin Jail, the apparition often reveals itself to visitors who have reported feeling unsafe in her presence. She was caught on camera by the jail's paranormal manager, Kirsten Honey. I think it's an old woman described as the hag, often seen within the walls of Bodmin Jail. She doesn't reside in one spot. She wanders through the corridors, Kristen says. Other people have witnessed her and felt fear or unsafe with her. She resonates a very uncomfortable feeling. She's extremely agitated and grumpy and would be the kind of woman you want to avoid. Kirsten said she felt uncomfortable herself. I think she was held at the jail for her tempestuous ways, she explained. I felt like I should stop, turn away, and walk in the other direction. The picture was taken during our last lockdown about 4 months ago in the Naval Wing, which is part of our attraction and now open to the public. It's not the first time a ghost has reportedly been seen at Cornwall's Old Jail, which is believed to be the county's most haunted location. As a matter of fact, in 2018, the ghost of a jealous man who murdered his young lover after she dumped him was filmed by Tony Ferguson, who claimed he could communicate with the other side. He said at the time he and his wife, Bev, made sure that they were the only visitors in the attraction, and they captured many supernatural incidents, including faint voices, strange electronic voice phenomena, and light orbs. Light orbs, Tim! Flying around the room.
No.
Tony shared the footage with Cornwall Live, and its spookiest moment is when the lights went completely white before what appears to be the full figure of a ghost turning up in an empty corridor. Tony believes the apparition caught might be that of William Hampton, the last man to be hanged in the county jail, and he was well hung from my understanding, Tim.
Hey, now.
Indeed, Tony had called his name a few seconds before the apparition, urging, if there are any spirits there at all, please leave your message. William Hampton from St. Earth was convicted of murder at the Bodmin County Court on June 24th, 1909, and was sentenced to death. A month earlier, the 24-year-old strangled his girlfriend, Emily Trida, age 16, at Vicarage Row in the Village. According to the website British Executions, the man met the teenager in Cornwall after working several years in America. They got engaged in 1908, but a few months later, after Emily is thought to have said she would not stay with William anymore, he killed her in the family home. The murderer gave himself up to the police after running away from the scene. He was executed on July 20th, 1909, and became Cornwall's last person to be hanged. All right, that's a creepy one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a creepy woman walking around you don't want to bump into. Good to know. Good to know. An experiment suggests that many adults are easily convinced by a paranormal event, especially if it arouses their emotions, Tim. A study from the journal Psychological Reports explored the reactions of college students to a supposed psychic event, a performer making contact with the deceased. About 65% of students believed they had witnessed a genuine psychic experience, and those who believed this were more likely to describe the event as an emotional stirring. Paranormal beliefs include supernatural belief, for example, belief in ghosts or other non-physical entities, superstition, spiritual belief, and religious belief. Not surprisingly, such beliefs are particularly common during childhood, as children frequently intertwine fantasy with reality. And yet, it's apparent that paranormal beliefs are also common amongst adults, they say in this article, Tim. Believe that. Adults believe in the paranormal? Get out of here.
No.
Oh. Study authors Lisa or Lise, I don't know, Lise, Lise Frey, and her team devised an experimental study to explore why paranormal beliefs seem to endure and continually develop into adulthood. Building on a previous study led by Lise Frey, the researchers invited a sample of 419 college students from Switzerland to watch a psychic performance. The students first felt compelled, the students first completed a measure of paranormal belief that included 7 subscales: traditional religious beliefs, witchcraft, superstition, spiritualism, extraordinary life forms, psi, and precognition. The group of students then witnessed an event where a performer seemingly makes contact with the deceased loved one of an audience member. The performer revealed details about the deceased person's life, and the audience member was seen growing very emotional. Unbeknownst to the participants of the study, the performer was a semi-professional magician, and the audience member was a Confederate. That means they were helping them. That doesn't mean that they were fighting in the World Civil War, Tim.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. After witnessing the performance, the students rated the extent that they believed the event was the result of supernatural powers, magic, trickery, or religious miracles. They then answered an open-ended question concerning their feelings and opinions of the event, and again completed the 7 subscales assessing their paranormal belief. As expected, students with greater scores on the paranormal belief questionnaire were more likely to endorse a psychic explanation for the event and less likely to endorse a magic trickery explanation. Notably, after watching the event, subjects' scores on the spiritualism subscale increased. Based on the students' rating, 65% of the sample gave a psychic explanation for the event. About 10% believed they witnessed magic trickery, and about 25% said that they witnessed neither. The researchers then coded the students' open-ended responses and found that many of them were conflicted about the experience. About half of the students expressed doubts about what they had seen, and about 1/3 expressed emotions that were both positive and negative. The researchers also found that students who made no mention of their emotions in their responses were less likely to endorse the psychic explanation. This suggests that the emotional aspect of the experience may have contributed to the students' endorsement of the psychic event. Lessefray and colleagues note that their sample consisted of a pre-selected group of college students and that the results may have looked somewhat different among the general population. As one avenue of future research, the authors suggest exploring the possibility and that the emotionally intense nature of the performance contributed to the students' paranormal belief. This could be done by comparing reactions to the type of performance to reactions to a less effective pseudo-psychological event like mind reading. The study, Talking to the Dead in the Classroom, How a Supposedly Psychic Event Impacts Beliefs and Feelings, was authored by Lise Lessefray, Gustav Kuhn, Daniela S. Jupe, and Gregory Monteglumbo, Cecily Nemrioff, and Deborah Rochat, and Christine Moore. Boy, she came in with a boring name at the end, huh?
Yes, she did.
This article is up on our page. If you go to darknessradio.com, click on the news tab, and when you roll to the bottom of the article, you can actually click on the link to take you to read this study and get a little bit more information about it. So, see, Tim, we're always educating, entertaining, and enlightening. That's what we do in the show.
Yes, we do.
I got an interesting story. Let's look at the truth behind the haunting movie, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Here are 13, not 12, not 11, not 14, Tim, but 13 facts about the haunting true story behind The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, of which we're going to cover this story in depth next week with Jeff Belanger. So I'm excited to get him back on the program. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, is now the 3rd entry in the frightening film series to dive into the cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren. This husband and wife team of self-styled demonologists claim they'd been combating supernatural evil since the 1970s. They spread the word on their work through lecture tours, books, and TV appearances where they documented their accounts of haunted houses, demonic dolls, and possessed people. As the title of the newest film suggests, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is about the latter, focusing on the true crime aspect of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, who tried to beat a murder rap by blaming demonic possession. Now, some of these stories you're going to recognize, some of these little factoids, but there was one that blew me away, and it's nearer the end. But first off, the murder of Alan Bono was the first recorded murder in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut. That's right. In early 1981, 19-year-old arborist Arnie Cheyenne Johnson and his 26-year-old girlfriend, Debbie Glatzel, were living in an apartment above Brookfield Kennels, where she worked under their landlord, 40-year-old Alan Bono. On February 16th, 1981, the couple was hanging out at home with Bono and a trio of Johnson's young relatives. Lunch and listening to music led to heavy drinking on Bono's part, so Glatzel decided it was time to get the girls, ages 9 to 15, out of there. Their attempted exit sparked a violent confrontation between Bono and Johnson, during which Johnson fatally stabbed Bono 4 to 5 times with a 5-inch pocket knife. Now, though it was the first homicide in the town's then 193-year-old history, it was not an unusual crime, Brookfield police told John Anderson from the Washington Post in the fall of 1981. Somebody got angry, an argument resulted. What was unusual was the media frenzy that followed. We couldn't have a simple, uncomplicated murder. Oh, no, Anderson lamented. Instead, everyone in the world converged on Brookfield. Fact number 2. Arnie Cheyenne Johnson's demon defense drew worldwide attention. There was no question that Johnson killed Bono. However, is it Bono or Bono? I don't know what to call this guy. Let's go with Bono. However, his defense attorney, 33-year-old Martin Manella, planned to argue that a 19-year-old was not guilty by virtue of demonic possession. Ahead of the trial, Manella pled his case through the media, giving interviews to major press outlets. The courts have dealt with the existence of God, and now they'll be asked to deal with the existence of the demonic, Manella told people. Everyone is interested in this case, Manella boasted to the Washington Post. Everyone. We got calls from Australia, Switzerland, from England, everywhere. When I went to London, they recognized me on the street. All the top studios are interested in this, all the top producers, of course. My position is that we won't talk until after the trial is over. My client is more important to me. Factoid number 3, Tim. The demon defense began with Ed and Lorraine Warren. The day after Johnson was arrested, Lorraine Warren called the Brookfield police and blamed the killing on a demon. Johnson didn't actually say the devil made him do it. He only claimed that he didn't remember stabbing Bono. However, according to the testimony of an officer on the scene, Johnson did tell police, "I think I hurt someone." Manella credited the Warrens for his defense strategy, which was an unprecedented religious variant on pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. Everyone asks, how could you come up with a defense like this? I didn't come up with this, Manella told the Washington Post. This is what was presented to me. I went to see Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I decided to take the case after talking to them. They told me that when you're possessed, you have no control over your actions. Factoid number 4. The demon story began with a little boy in a waterbed, as good demon stories often do, Tim.
Oh, yes.
In a rare video interview done for the paranormal docuseries A Haunting in an episode titled Where Devils Dwell, Johnson and Glatzel explained that Arnie was not the first person in their family circle to become possessed. Months before the murder, the young couple was renting a house in the country. There, her 11-year-old brother, David Glatzel, claimed a malevolent spirit that he called the old man shoved him onto a waterbed that was left behind by a previous tenant. From there, David saw the old man everywhere. The boy spoke in strange voices, screamed horrid things, and lashed out in violence. His concerned mother, Judy Glatzel, believed her son was haunted, so she called in the Warrens, having previously seen the couple lecture on ghosts. Factoid 5. The Warrens determined a horde of demons was to blame. We knew there were about 43 demons in the boy, Ed Warren told People in 1981. We demanded names, and David gave us 43. With this demonic diagnosis, Ed and Lorraine performed what they called lesser exorcisms to try to rescue David. During one of these rituals, Johnson reportedly begged the beast to leave the boy and take him instead. Glatzel says after this, her beau began to act strange. Cheyenne would go into a trance, she told People. He would growl and say he saw the beast. Later, he would have no memory of this. Factoid number 6. No formal exorcism was ever held. The Bishop of Bridgeport refused to sanction the Catholic rite because the Glatzel family had not consented to the psychological testing required to eliminate mental illness as a factor. David's mother defended her decision, telling the Washington Post, "They want to stick needles into my kid. There's no way in hell they're going to do that. Exactly what kind of psychological testing requires needles still remains unclear." Factoid 7. Not everyone who knew Arnie Cheyenne Johnson blamed the devil. The Glatzel family stood by Johnson, as did the Warrens. However, in her deep dive on the case for the Washington Post, reporter Lynn Darling cited anonymous sources who described Johnson as quick to anger and extremely possessive of his girlfriend he called his wife. Darling was also told about an incident in which Arnie once ripped a small stuffed animal to shreds with his knife after an argument at a tree service where he once worked. Factoid number 8. The Warrens were reportedly eager to capitalize on Arnie Cheyenne Johnson's story. Even before Johnson's case went to court, Lorraine speculated to Darling, will we have a book written about this? Yes, we will. Will we lecture about it? Yes, we will. When she was asked whether she had started talking to any movie producers about the case, she responded, no, we're not. Our agents at William Morris Agency are. That is where it gets a little sticky and why there are so many people that question the Warrens and the depth of these investigations, Tim.
Yeah.
Here's one I found interesting. I never knew about this. Now I got to look it up. There was a 1983 made-for-TV movie about Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, but it didn't use anyone's real name. In the 1983 made-for-TV movie, The Demon Murder Case presented Johnson's case with a young Kevin Bacon in the lead role as the possessed killer. Who played the elderly paranormal investigators? Beverly McKinsey and Andy Griffith. Yeah, that's right. They played a pair of married elderly paranormal investigators. However, the names of those involved in the real life were changed to aliases. The Warrens earned no screen credits. Ed, who passed away in 2006, never got to see any of the Conjuring movies for himself, but Lorraine, who died in 2019, lived to see the first two films in the series. I didn't know that Andy Griffith did a movie like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
You got to watch it. I got to be like, that's a hell of a possession. Ooh wee, that's a hell of a possession.
We got to stop for a Ritz cracker break.
That's right. Factoid 10, Lorraine Warren was sued over alleged falsehoods in her book, The Devil in Connecticut. It's easy to say, Tim.
Yes.
First published in 1983, The Devil in Connecticut was a collaborative effort between the Warrens and author Gerald Brittle. When the book was poised to be reprinted in 2006, David Glatzel and his older brother Carl sued Brittle and Lorraine, Ed had already passed away, for invasion of the right to privacy, libel, and intentional affliction of emotional distress due to false information within its pages. Carl, who was 16 at the time of the alleged possession, told the press that the whole thing was a hoax created by the Warrens. He argued that David's behavior in 1981 stemmed from not 43 demons, but from undiagnosed mental illness. It was a living hell when we were kids, Carl told the Associated Press in 2007. It was just a nightmare. I'm not going to go through that again. Neither is my brother. Factoid 11. The Glatzel brothers lost their lawsuit, yet still won the battle. The Glatzels' lawsuit was dismissed. However, the brothers did succeed in getting the book taken out of print. Brittle admitted as such in 2021 interview with the Hartford Courant, saying, I did it because I was fed up with the case, fed up with Carl Glatzel. It just wasn't worth it to me. It had no bearing on the fact that the book was true. Factoid number 12. The demon defense didn't save Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. After all the headlines and hype, the demon defense that could have made for a landmark case never made it to the jury. Superior Court Judge Robert J. Callahan rejected Manella's witness list, which included Catholic priests, paranormal investigators, and members of the Glatzel family. Before a courtroom jam-packed with press, Judge Callahan proclaimed, the court will take judicial notice that the profession, the business, or hobby of locating demons has not risen to the level of viability where it would be of assistance to the jury in deciding this case. And it would be incompetent evidence, and I will not allow it. Now, on November 24th, 1981, Johnson was convicted of first-degree manslaughter, meaning the jury believed he intended to harm but not kill Bono. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years, but served less than 5. On January 23, 1986, the AP reported that the 24-year-old was released early on parole because he had been a model prisoner at the Connecticut Correctional Institute in Somers. Factoid number 13, Arnie Cheyenne Johnson and Debbie Glatzel stayed together. Johnson and Glatzel married on January 30th, 1985, while he was still in prison. The embattled couple went on to have 2 sons. In her 2006 interview for A Haunting, Debbie Johnson, nee Glatzel, declared, "Our love has only grown stronger. He was willing to sacrifice himself to save my brother." Outside of this rare TV appearance, the couple has stayed largely out of the public eye since Johnson's release. However, in the wake of renewed interest because of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, Carl revealed in 2021 that his sister had recently passed. Johnson has remained off the radar. They're both in the documentary, which is dedicated to Debbie as well, but it's in the documentary The Devil Made Me Do It on Discovery Plus, and it's a really good documentary. You can find this article, more information and such on our website, darknessradio.com, under the news tab. That's how easy I make it, Tim.
Yeah.
I just put it there so they can find it.
Right on.
That's the kind of giver I am. I'm a bit of a giver. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that to you.
No, never. I've never heard that
true.
before. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't like to brag about it. What can I say?
That's why I hear about you. Yeah.
Now, following up on that story, a man accused of murdering his mom and daughter said an ancient spirit was behind it. A builder told detectives, Tim, that an ancient supernatural spirit, okay, Tim, an ancient supernatural spirit called Robert lived at the home of a murdered psychiatrist and her teenage daughter, a court has heard.
Robert, you say?
Yeah. It's an ancient name in the spiritual demonic realm.
Yeah. Bob for short. Yeah.
All right, it's demon roll call. Satan, I'm here. Lucifer, yep, accounted for. Bob? Robert? Yeah, I'm here.
Robert.
Funny. They all sound like Rolf the dog. Yeah.
It's like my guardian angel, Larry. There's a guardian angel named Larry. What the shit? Police found the bodies of Dr. Saman Mir Shakavi, 49, and 14-year-old Vian Mengrio at their fire-damaged semi-detached house in Bunley, Lancashire, on the morning of October 1st last year. Shabazz Khan, 51, was arrested after CCTV video footage showed him the day before visiting the home where he previously carried out various repairs. Police found a bag containing items of gold jewelry worth tens of thousands of pounds belonging to the clinician, known locally as Dr. Saman, when they searched his address. A phone containing internet searches for what is DNA and can we get DNA from burned bodies for investigations was recovered from the address, Preston Crown Court heard, because demons want to look that shit up before they murder Tim.
Oh, absolutely.
Demons also love gold and silver and riches to take with them.
Mm-hmm.
On Tuesday, jurors saw footage of Khan throw himself across the police station cell and onto his bed after he was told the room was being monitored by staff. He later explained he had been visited by someone called Robert, who held him by his throat and banged his head against the wall. Prosecutor David McLaughlin said he will tell you Robert was and is a jinn. The jinn is an Islamic faith and is probably best translated as a supernatural spirit. And it was Shabazz Khan, we suggest, trying to set up his defense to say he had been attacked in his cell by a supernatural spirit. The prosecution say nonsense, absolute nonsense. When interviewed by detectives the next day, he made jerking movements and told them his name was Robert Smith Wood. Robert Smith from The Cure? Robert Smith Wood. He was 620 years old and he lived in the same home address of Dr. Saman, the court heard. Khan said whenever he went to the house in Colleen Road, he saw Robert and Rita, another appearance. Are you kidding me? Robert and Rita are my former in-laws. I kid you not.
Really?
Remember the Knutsons?
Yeah.
Mr. Bob.
Yeah.
It was Robert and Rita. That's hilarious. I'm sending this article to my ex-wife. He said Dr. Saman told him Robert had broken a mirror because he was angry. An extension had been built in his area and that he kept moving the dining room table. Khan said both he and the doctor had a mental health condition and she would hit her daughter and pull her hair, forcing him to intervene to break them up. In a further interview, the defendant said he had no idea how Dr. Saman and her daughter had died. He said that when he left the house, Miss Mangrio was upstairs and Dr. Saman was in the kitchen chatting to Robert and Rita. The Crown says Khan killed Dr. Saman and her daughter, then returned from when she returned from school. He is then alleged to have set fires, including the severe burning of Miss Mangiro in the lounge, an attempt to set alight Dr. Saman in the upstairs front bedroom, and another blaze in the kitchen. Post-mortem examinations reveal the doctor died from pressure to the neck. The schoolgirl died of asphyxia. The jury has also heard Khan allegedly tried to shift blame for the deaths, Tim, D-E-A-F-S,
yes.
Deaths, or deaths, as we say, in the more learned environment, to the schoolgirl by writing on walls, COVID-19 house, my mom is evil, COVID home, and help me. Days earlier, Miss Mangrio had been self-isolating along with her mother as she was awaiting a coronavirus test result, which proved negative. Mr. McLaughlin said there had been a crude attempt to deflect blame from himself into Vian Mangrio. We submit she did not kill her mother and then did not go on to kill herself. Both deaths, we submit, and it is for you to determine, were down to the man in the dock. And they were not killed by supernatural spirits either. Was it real in his head that he threw himself across the cell of his bed, or was it a feeble attempt to pretend there was something wrong with his mental state? He appears to blame the jinns, Tim. He appears to blame Vian Mangrio, and he tries to do his best to get away from the blame himself. Khan of Ribble Avenue, Burnley, denies 2 counts of murder and 1 count of arson, being reckless as to whether life was endangered. His wife, Rabia Shabazz, 45, also of Ribble Avenue, denies doing an act intended to pervert the course of public justice. So Bob and Rita from Lindstrom, Minnesota, are out there encouraging people to murder. Don't you know, Tim?
Bob Wood. All I can think of is bobbing on the wood. Yeah.
Huh. What the hell? What kind of gins are named Bob and Rita?
None.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I got questions. I got to call the ex-wife and talk to her about this. As they said in the Dirty Harry movie, I gots to know. I needs to know. There's more to this story that needs to be told.
I guess
that is so funny, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Bob and Rita. That is so twisted. Oh my gosh. All right. Let's see here. I know I've got a couple more news stories to share, Tim, but I'm also trying to look into the emails. Oh yeah. I've read that like 3 times now. So let's not do that story about Alfredo Lopez again.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great story.
It is.
I feel like we shouldn't continue to share it. Let's see. Hello, Dave. The Navy calls underwater objects moving at incredible speed fast movers. I've heard about these for many years. Personally, I do not believe they are going to tell us anything new. They just want to keep the fear factor up. You will agree to almost anything if you have enough fear. Regards, Joseph Card. Well, I don't agree with that, and I'm terrified all the time, Joe. Hey, guys, I'm listening to episode 54, which just dropped for me this morning. Although I'm glad that there's more and more talk about aliens and UFOs, there's a part of all this that I don't often hear folks talk about. Everyone seems to be focused on the debate about are they real and when, if the government will disclose. However, my question is, what happens then? Let's say that the government comes forward and announces, yes, we know about them and confirms everything we've speculated. Then what? Everyone walks around gloating, saying, oh, I told you so. Do we spin everybody up into a World War II type frenzy with propaganda posters everywhere stating Earth for Earthlings, and research manufacturing begins with the building of spaceships and weapons? I'm just curious as to what the ultimate plan is once the information we believe the government has. And that comes from John. I don't know, John. That's a great question. I don't know.
Well, John, here's the thing. You have to ask where the money lies. Like you just pointed out, does the money lie in defense, in defending yourself against these beings, or does the money lie in co-opting their technology and developing it for ourselves? It's a matter of where the money lies. If you form an alliance with these so-called real beings and share technology, well, then obviously using that technology for ourselves and spreading it throughout the world is where this money is where the profit goes and where we use it. If it's an unfriendly relationship, then obviously you're going to see the defense train move on, and that's where the money is. So there you go.
See the little aliens with their alien probes and UFOs. The little aliens are millionaires. You get your money for nothing, Tim. You get your anal probes for free.
Then you go back to the dating show, which, by the way, is UFOcasting.com, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Truly a dating show that they're looking to put out there. I don't know if it's truly a dating show or just introducing people that are sharing similar situations. But here's the deal. Do you want to do that? And then, maybe that's what the alien agenda is, bringing these people together so it's easier to abduct two at one place.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, don't put that out there. I mean, that...
I'm just throwing it out. I think somebody needs to ask these hard questions. Dear Dave and Tim, yes, that's us.
Hiya.
My mother died last year on the 5th of November. Oh, we're sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
The circumstances were rough and unexpected. I marked the description of what happened below in case you do not wish to read a sad story. Now, my mother has not yet been a beacon of good health for the past few years and looked a lot older than she actually was. She was feeling a little unwell, and as she described what was wrong, my sister realized she was describing a heart attack. We both had to convince her to go see a doctor, and when she finally did, she was immediately taken to the hospital. As horrible as the news was, they were able to perform an emergency operation successfully. After we received a call that all was well, as it could be, and that she would be allowed to leave the ICU the next day, we planned to go visit the next day in the hospital. Not much later, we received a panicked phone call that told us to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Something went very wrong after she went to sleep. Her heart just stopped. Even the nurses and doctors were caught off guard. This was a hard pill to swallow. It still feels like life took a wrong turn and I ended up in the wrong timeline. I cannot explain it differently. We went left where we should have gone right, and there is no going back. Now, fast forward to a few months later, my wife had a dream, a vivid one, where my mother reached out to her upset, claiming that things were not okay. Look at me. Look at these wrinkles. I'm stuck and I cannot move on. There is a secret nobody knows about. My wife and my mother were not exactly close. The relationship always has been strained in a way you would not expect my mother to reach out to her, but rather to my sister or me. The dream left an impression, one big enough for my wife to get uneasy and looking for a medium. She seems convinced by that one dream that she is stuck. Do you have any advice to find a trustworthy medium? I'm afraid she might walk down a rabbit hole of shady mediums, not quite common or held in high regard in our country. Are there any signs I could look into to make sure we are not talking to, snake oil salesmen? Thank you. Kind regards, Timothy. Timothy, check out spiritart.com. Check out evidenceofeternity.com. Check out chrisfleming.com. Those are three mediums that we know, love, and trust and recommend quite often. You can also look up haloreadings.com and Denise Marie, who was a guest on our show last week. But here's what I would say. I'm going to throw out this concept. Why your mother appeared to her and not you or your sister. Because it was a strained relationship, for your mother to reach out to her is more impactful. Which means if she would have reached out to you or your sister, you may have simply dismissed this as though a grieving process or your own sadness and dealing with survivor's guilt. But by reaching out to your wife, that separates that aspect of this and the connection to you two. So if there's something there, she might be relating to her because, again, normally we all want to find a real reason for why things happen. As you stated in your own letter, you feel like you've jumped timelines into a different universe where you're not supposed to be. And by getting that message, it might just make you feel like you're validating that fear as opposed to taking it as a real communication with your mother. So I would talk to a medium and maybe again, spiritart.com, evidenceofeternity.com for Mark Anthony, or haloreadings.com and talk to Denise Marie, or chrisfleming.com and talk to our good friend Chris Fleming. That would be my suggestion on that. And I hope that Timothy, I hope that gives you some answers. Thank you for sharing your story, and we're sorry about your loss.
Yeah.
All right. Just a couple news stories left, Timmy D.
I think we forgot to go to Theater of the Mind.
Oh, we did? Well, let's do that right now. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, and because Tim put a lot of work into this, it's time now to turn down those lights. Pull up close to your radio, because this is Theater of the Mind. Today's Theater of the Mind, from the real-life experience of Quentin, the house on Fifth Avenue. This experience, or series of experiences, I suppose, happened in the Nebraska Panhandle, in a beautiful home that I spent the large part of my youthful years at. I imagine at one time it was a grand abode of someone who was quite wealthy in its glory days, but by the time we moved in, it was more of a hidden gem amongst the more modern homes that had sprang up all around it. It was a large 2-story house with an attic that we never went up in, as it was more of a crawl space rather than an attic. It also had a large basement that my parents had spent a considerable amount of time and money remodeling into additional bedrooms, a den, etc. Now, for the first couple of years in that house, my room was on the 2nd floor, just off to the right at the top of a hardwood staircase. And after I began experiencing things in the home, I couldn't look at that staircase or walk down it without thinking of that damn photo of the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. The stairs leading up to the upper floor always reminded me of the one in the photo, albeit smaller. The entire 1st floor, minus the kitchen, had these incredible polished wood floors, and the dining room was separated from the living room by 2 carved wooden pillars that marked the transition from one room to the next. There was even a chandelier that hung in the dining room. Living upstairs, I had relatively little happen. This was an old house, so occasionally the radiator in a room would kick on and make a noise that would be quite jarring. Other times, I'd hear things moving out on the landing where I thought no one else was around, and I even got startled once by the sounds of footsteps passing by my door when it was closed. Thinking I was alone upstairs, I opened it, looked around, and no one was there. But there was always one of my family home with me somewhere in the house. So it never really occurred to me that it may not have been them. When things took a more stressing turn was when my bedroom was moved to the room at the bottom of the stairs, just to the left of the main door. It was spacious and had huge windows that ran along one side that looked out across the neighborhood and even had a bathroom attached to it. It was an update for sure, but had I known what would happen that first night and for a couple of weeks afterwards, I would have just stayed upstairs. My first night in that room started fairly typical. I was doing quite a bit of art in those days and would spend a couple hours before bed sketching in my drawing pad and then retire to the sheets with music playing on an old CD player that at the time would have been likely my most prized possession. I lay in bed for what seemed like hours that first night, but found sleep difficult. I tossed and turned and finally wound up staring at a darkened ceiling, watching shadows dance across it from trees outside my window, whose backsides were illuminated by the moonlight. I slept with my door open, and the door sat almost directly at the end of my bed. So, entering the room, one would be standing mere inches from the foot of my bed. As I watched the ceiling from the corner of my left eye, I saw something move. At first, I thought it was shadows from the trees outside as the wind was blowing that night, making the shadows dance frantically in my room. But whatever it was that had moved had stopped, but was still visible in my peripheral vision. Slowly, I moved my eyes towards the door. Standing just inside the doorway, almost directly at the end of my bed, was a huge black mass, vaguely human in shape. I could see it because it was darker than the other shadows in my room, and it stood out almost like an inky spot against the darkness of the natural shadows filling most of that area. As the wind blew outside, I could see the shadows cast out from the tree moving around the thing at the end of the bed, but its silhouette was never broken by light or by shadow. It was darker than the shadows in the room. It was unwavering in form, but black in the darkest of possible shades. And it simply stood there. I thought maybe behind that blackness there was something staring back at me, but it never gave any indication that it was doing so, and it never moved. This went on for some time, and I stared at it with my blankets pulled up to my nose, trying to control my breaths so as not to alert this thing that I was in the room. I don't know why I thought it was either oblivious to me or ignoring me, but I never felt like this thing cared that I was present. I got the impression it was looking out the window at something that I couldn't see. After what seemed like an eternity, I watched it slowly back out of the room. A vanishing, oily darkness that, upon its leaving, returned the room to a look of a natural shadow pierced by moonlight. I'm not going to elaborate on the physical effects this thing instilled in my body, but I knew that night that whatever had come into my room was not human. And though it didn't seem overtly threatening, it left me absolutely terrified. For the next couple of weeks, this thing visited my room almost every night, and I finally reached a point where sleep was impossible. It would get late and I would just lay there and stare at the door. And eventually, after the rest of the house had gone to sleep, my visitor would appear by slowly walking through that doorway of the room, looking as if it was absorbing the darkness to become even darker than shadow. And then just stand at the end of my bed until it had fulfilled whatever it was that it had come for. Then, again, it would slowly back out, disappearing behind the door frame. I brought this up carefully with my parents and was taken to being a kid with an overactive and big imagination. Needless to say, my time in that room was short-lived, and after much complaining, it eventually landed me down in the newly remodeled basement of that house. And that's a story for a different time. Another great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. If you have a story and a strange experience and you can write it out as a nice narrative, keeping it to below 3 pages, spaced and paragraphed out, we would love to read it and share it on an episode. It can be 1 to 3 pages long, and it'll be featured on an upcoming episode of Darkness Radio. Just email them to me, dave@darknessradio.com. Don't be afraid to use that spell check. Read it out loud to yourself once or twice to make sure that it's written the way you want it to sound, and then send it off to me. That's all I ask from you, and we will share it on an upcoming episode. Here we go, Tim. We're going to Bollywood. Bollywood. The international news shares a story. B-Town newbie Aliyah F. is sharing her bone-chilling experiences of witnessing supernatural activity while she was living in New York City, Tim.
New York City?
Get a rope. The Joanie Jainsman star shared that during her time living in the Big Apple, she had been residing in a haunted apartment where she witnessed a number of paranormal activities taking place. During an interview with Tweak India, Aliyah said, "When I was living and studying in New York, there was a ghost in my New York apartment. I used to hear loud footsteps in the middle of the night. Sometimes the shower would turn on randomly. There were lots of creepy things that would go on." Yeah, there's nothing worse than a walking, freshly cleaned ghost, Tim.
Yeah.
Then one day something happened where from the corner of my eye, I saw this quick flash go past me. I was like, "Did you see that?" And she was like, "I didn't see anything, but I felt something hit me like as though it was somebody running by me." That's when I was like, okay, there's something else going on here. And then I was really terrified. I didn't want to go back to my home, she added. That's pretty creepy. Thinking you see something and then feel it tear past you and bang into you?
Yeah, that's not good.
Nope. A star of a TV show says Ouija contact with his dad led him on a spiritual journey. A paranormal investigator from Hamilton in Scotland is starring in a new TV series showing contact with ghosts. David Barrett says he's followed the spirit world ever since his late dad made contact with him through a Ouija board 20 years ago. The experience led him to a passion for exploring ghostly activity and recalls similar brief encounters he had when he was a child. The 44-year-old from Burnbank leads a Scottish team of investigators in the U.S. show True Ghost Stories, and findings from David and his crew are said to be phenomenal, with all to be revealed when the show airs in the coming months. David told Lancashire Live, "I've been investigating paranormal ongoings for 20 years now. The show came about as a one-off chance with different teams featuring across the series. It's quite groundbreaking. It's the unknown that fascinates me. It all started when I had a couple of experiences as a child. Then I had contact from my dad when I was about 25. I'd gone to a public hosting with a Ouija board, and my dad came through that. The answers I was getting blew my mind open, and it was part of my journey. It was things that only my dad could answer, confirming how he passed. He died in a house fire when I was young, and he was able to communicate very specific personal stuff to me. True Ghost Stories features 12 paranormal teams from around the world capturing raw footage of their spooky encounters. David's team, Project Paranormal, shot at Jedburgh Bay. Where's it shot, Tim? Jedburgh Jail? Jedburgh Jail, as well as the House of Mary, Queen of Scots. They used an intelligence app on a mobile phone that speaks for the spirits who make contact. The team also use a radio for tracing ghosts. David, an environmental scientist by day, says the information the app can provide will shock people with the ability to tell people what they're holding in their hand and the contents of a closed bag. It was something I've always been interested in, and I put myself forward for it. And I have to have a full production team involved. It's amazing, he continued. We use an app which can answer intelligent questions, not just yes or no. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've caught on camera things like laughing and a singing a number of times I've heard with my own ears. Even playing cards, it can tell you to either stick or twist and have that sort of intelligence. The app can tell you what you're holding in your hand, or if you have a bag, it can tell you what it's in. The Jedburgh Jail episode, some of the evidence we caught there is phenomenal. And in Mary, Queen of Scots' house, we got some intelligence from spirits on the location, such as spies. True Ghost Stories premieres this Friday on U.S. broadcast Facet.tv, with Scotland's episode expected in the coming weeks. We have a link up to this story again so that you can find it, and the link to the story, how to watch the episode. It's all there, Tim. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Who do you trust, Tim? Trust the Gordon's fishermen. Remember that old theme?
I do, but I never understood why people trusted him. I mean, he was an old, smelly guy with a big beard and a yellow coat. I mean, what happens when he opens the yellow coat, Dave? What's under the yellow coat?
He brings you real fish, Tim, not just bits and chunks of things pressed and breaded and told it's fish, Tim. So you can trust the Gordon's fishermen.
But did you ever open up one of those fish sticks, Dave? I mean, it was just the same old pressed stuff.
But it was much higher grade pressed stuff, Tim.
Uh-huh.
An alarmed Edinburgh man catches a glimpse of a fisherman ghost at the top of the stairs. An Edinburgh man has appeared to catch a glimpse of a fisherman ghost while on tour of the city. The capital is known for its fair share of paranormal, with tours frequently taking visitors down to the likes of Mary King's Close or deep into the underground vaults. Many have recalled tales of feeling strange sensations, hearing odd noises, or even spotting shadowed figures in the darkness. It seems one man was one of the latest to have an encounter with a ghost from the city's past, and even managed to take a quick snapshot of the moment. Posting a video about the experience on TikTok, user Prep Landing 1 told viewers that while on an underground tour, he had sensed a man in the room. After looking around, he added that he was wearing what appeared to be a fisherman's clothing, and quickly took a blurry photo of the figure. Whilst on a ghost tour in Edinburgh, I sensed two men and told tour guide, this one at the top of the stairs, and both were in fisherman clothing. I don't know. I'm all over the place with that accent, Tim. Let me go with the one accent that I do know. The incident would not be first to occur underneath the city, with many known to have experienced unexplainable phenomena, Tim. Phenomena. However, the hauntings have also been known to extend outside the walls of Old Town. Last year, a pair of 20-year-olds from Edinburgh were left horrified after spotting a ghostly apparition in images they took while exploring an abandoned Midlothian mental hospital. I'm not seeing anything in the images they're showing me. I'm looking at them. You guys go look at it, darknessradio.com. Click on the news tab. Go check out the stories. Do you see the ghostesses that they claim are there? Because I deny, Tim.
You deny?
I deny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Means I don't in Scottish, Tim.
Right.
I deny. See it, lad.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
A woman says she's fallen for an alien after a UFO abduction, and they're better than British men. Wow.
Well, I don't blame her. I mean, have you tried dating a British man lately?
I haven't. Not lately.
No.
Abby Bella has landed herself an out-of-this-world lover. She claims she has fallen for an alien after being abducted by an UFO. Abby reckons she was taken from her bedroom window this month. Last month, we told how a gran from Bradford said she had been abducted by aliens more than 50 times. Paula Smith claimed her first close encounter was when she was a little girl, and they had continued ever since. The 50-year-old even shared images of bruises she claimed were left on her bodies by aliens. They're rough lovers, Tim.
They
Very
are.
rough lovers.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
But actress Abby, who's in her 30s, says her E.T. paramour is her soulmate and better than any earthling, especially English men. Swack to you, Englishmen. Though she's still waiting for a second date with her sweetheart from the Andromeda Galaxy. He's ghosting her. Abby said, I'm sick of men of Earth. I joked online about wanting an alien to abduct me. So some jackass dressed up in tinfoil and a rubber head snuck in and boned her. And then she wonders why she's not hearing from him. I then started dreaming every night of a white light. One night, a voice in my dream said, wait in the usual spot, my love. The next evening, I sat to my open window. As I drifted to sleep, a flying saucer appeared outside. There was a bright green beam, which transported me to the UFO. Abby claims there were 5 aliens which had a human build, but were very tall and slender. She said there was one who connected with me. Is that what you kids are calling it over there in Britain? I felt the same. He said I had to consent to go with him. Ah, good. Aliens are getting consent, Tim.
Oh, that's good. Yes. Yeah.
But I didn't want to say yes in case they took me forever. Abby said she was safely returned to her Canary Wharf in East London after merely 20 minutes. 20 minutes? What is this guy on, like, protein powder? Thank you, everybody. She now has an overnight bag ready and said, I hope he comes back. I'm willing to go to the Andromeda Galaxy. He's like, I'm not from the Andromeda Galaxy, you jackass. I'm from Pallades. But Abby has faced a backlash over her new lover and added, it's controversial. Controversial? How do they say it in English? It's controversial for people who haven't considered interspecies dating.
It's controversy, Dave. Controversy.
Controversy. Yes. I'm willing to give it a go. I'm willing to be the first one to normalize it. You're not the first one. I've been making that offer for years. I go to Dragon Con, all these conventions, women all dressed up freaky and weird and alien. And I'm like, I'm somewhat turned on. I must be ready to procreate with the alien races. Or I already have, Tim. I'm not quite sure. I do Ancestry.com, 23andme.com. As soon as there's messages from Uranus.com, I'll throw my blood DNA into there and see if I have alien children spread across the galaxy.
I don't know.
It's not a joke.
Oh, okay.
All right. Our final story is here. A strange white light was spotted in Chalfont, St. Peter, with a huge crop circle discovered in a nearby field. A strange white light was spotted in a Bucks Village overnight, with a huge crop circle discovered by residents in a nearby field this morning. Martin Holt, who lives in Laders Close, Chalfont, St. Peter, told the Bucks Free Press he is woken up around 1 a.m. from a bright light coming from outside. He said, I first thought it was a security light or the moon. There was no sound, so I thought I would investigate. I opened one of the windows in my bedroom, looked outside, and I could see the light. I saw the light. I saw the light. I looked outside. I could see the light. It was pure, and it was white. It was a great dome of light. That's the only way I can describe it. It was perfectly white, like an opaque bulb. The dome was about 150 feet wide, around 30 feet tall, absolutely enormous. Mr. Holt said he continued to listen out for any sounds, but didn't hear anything. And then, mysteriously, fell back asleep. In the morning, he went to Vodon and on his way back met a neighbor and asked her if she had seen anything. She said she hadn't, so I told her what I saw, and she said, let's go take a look in the field. When the pair got to the nearby field, Mr. Holt said they saw a huge crop circle about 150 feet wide one way and 50 to 60 feet the other way. That sounds more like an oval then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He added, all the grass is flat, but the weeds are standing upright, and the tops of all the trees further down on Mumsford Lane are burnt. It's very strange. I can't say it was a UFO because it wasn't flying, but it was definitely an unidentified object or light. Crazy. Unidentified lights, crop circles, alien abductions, Tim. Oh, that's just a bit of what you can expect when you tune in to the best in Paranormal Talk Radio every Wednesday when we bring you supernatural news and Parashare. We share your stories. You can share your stories. Call our Voices from Beyond voicemail 651-300-4977. That's 651-300-4977, or email your stories to me, dave@darknessradio.com. For that guy, I'm this guy. You've been listening to the best in Paranormal Talk Radio. This is Darkness Radio.